My husband's hands were still bruised from hitting me when I discovered his secret bank accounts, his criminal connections, and the evidence that would send his entire family to prison forever, because they thought a beaten wife would never fight back. My name is Catherine Holmes Thompson, and for 24 years, I perfected the art of being invisible in my own life. The Thompson family had a hierarchy that everyone understood, but no one discussed. Michael was the golden child, the successful businessman whose opinions shaped family decisions. His brother Brian commanded attention with charm and easy humor that made everyone gravitate toward him. His sister Amy received constant validation for her creativity and social connections. And then there was me, Michael's wife, the shadow who kept everyone's life running smoothly while remaining perpetually grateful to be included. I'd spent over 2 decades proving my worth through endless service. When Thompson Insurance needed marketing materials, I created comprehensive campaigns while working full-time at the library. When Brian's restaurant struggled, I designed his social media strategy for free. When Amy needed help with her real estate presentations, I spent weekends formatting her proposals. Every contribution was met with polite thanks, but never recognition. At family dinners, I served the meal I'd cooked while they discussed business decisions that affected my life. During holidays, they reminisced about shared memories that deliberately excluded me. Even after Hannah and Tyler were born, I remained the helpful outsider. Essential when needed, invisible when not. The pattern was suffocating. I gave everything, they took everything, and somehow I was supposed to feel blessed for the privilege. Have you ever felt like you were always the backup plan in your own family? Tell me in the comments about your invisible wife moment. But invisibility was just the foundation of something darker. The Thompson family had perfected the art of casual cruelty disguised as family teasing. Michael would joke about my weight in front of guests. His mother would comment on my simple fashion choices at family events. Amy would laugh about my quirky job at the library, as if community service was amusing rather than meaningful. Each cutting remark was followed by, "Just kidding," or, "You know we love you," making me the problem if I showed hurt. I learned to smile through humiliation, to laugh at jokes made at my expense, to accept that my feelings mattered less than their entertainment. The breaking point should have come years earlier, when Michael forgot, our anniversary 3 years running, when his parents introduced me as Michael's wife to people I'd known for 15 years, when Amy publicly credited other people with ideas I'd created for her business. But I kept hoping, kept believing that if I just proved myself valuable enough, worked hard enough, absorbed enough casual cruelty with good humor, they'd finally see me as family instead of hired help. My mother Rebecca had warned me about this pattern before she died. "Catherine," she'd said during our last conversation, "marriage should make you feel more visible, not less. Don't disappear into someone else's family." I dismissed her concern as typical maternal worry about losing her daughter to in-laws. I should have listened, because what started as invisibility and meanness was about to escalate into something that would force me to choose between my safety and their comfort. The announcement came during Sunday dinner, delivered with the casual authority of people who'd never questioned their right to make decisions about my life without consulting me. "We've decided Catherine should quit her job at the library," Michael's mother announced, "so she can focus full-time on supporting the family business properly." Michael Thompson wasn't born abusive. He was systematically trained by a family that worshipped control disguised as tradition. To outsiders, Michael appeared to be the ideal husband. Successful businessman, active community member, devoted father figure. His social media showed carefully curated photos of family achievements. His colleagues respected his professional competence. His parents praised his natural leadership and strong character. But privately, Michael had evolved from dismissive neglect into something much more dangerous. 3 incidents marked his transformation from emotional abuse into physical intimidation. Incident 1, the business dinner humiliation. At the annual Chamber of Commerce event, I'd worn a dress Michael hadn't pre-approved. During cocktail hour, he gripped my arm hard enough to leave bruises and whispered, "You look like you're trying too hard." It's embarrassing. When I tried to pull away, his grip tightened. "Smile and pretend we're having a loving conversation, Catherine. People are watching." I smiled through tears while his fingernails drew blood on my inner arm. Incident 2, the kitchen confrontation. When I suggested Michael was being too harsh with Tyler about baseball performance, he cornered me against the kitchen counter. "Don't undermine my parenting in front of the children," he said, placing both hands on the counter on either side of me, trapping me in place. When I tried to move, he pressed closer, his weight pinning me against the granite edge. "Do we understand each other?" The counter left bruises across my lower back that lasted 2 weeks. Incident 3, the file cabinet incident. I'd accidentally moved some of Michael's business documents while cleaning his office. He grabbed my wrist and twisted it behind my back, forcing me face first against the metal file cabinet. "Never touch my business materials again," he said, pressing my cheek against the cold metal while my shoulders screamed in pain. "Your job is to clean around my things, not move them." My face was bruised for days, which I blamed on walking into a door when neighbors asked. Each incident followed the same pattern. Michael would become enraged by some perceived challenge to his authority, physically intimidate me into submission, then act like nothing had happened. If I mentioned the incidents later, he'd claim I was being dramatic or misremembering what actually occurred. But Michael's greatest vulnerability was his desperate need to maintain his reputation as a good man in the community. His standing as a respected businessman and family leader was built on the facade that he was ethical, caring, and successful through legitimate means. What the community didn't know was that Michael's business success relied heavily on connections his family didn't even realize existed. He'd been laundering money through Thompson Insurance for clients who needed their criminal profits to appear legitimate. The elderly fraud was just one small part of a much larger criminal operation that included drug dealers, illegal gambling operations, and tax evaders who paid premium rates for clean financial documentation. Michael had built his reputation on being a pillar of the community while secretly serving as a financial facilitator for organized crime. His entire professional image would shatter if anyone discovered he was essentially running a money laundering operation disguised as an insurance company. The Thompson family had no idea their golden child was a criminal whose arrest would destroy not just his life, but their social standing, financial security, and community respect forever. Michael had made one critical mistake. He assumed a beaten wife would never have the courage to investigate what he was really hiding. The bruise on my ribs was still purple when I received the text message that would change everything. I was organizing Michael's home office, carefully cleaning around his papers as he'd violently instructed, when his phone, left charging on the desk, buzzed with a message from someone named Collector Tony. "Tony, 2:47 p.m. Your monthly wash is complete. $150,000 moved through the elderly policies as discussed. Next batch ready Thursday." I stared at the message, reading it 3 times before understanding hit me like ice water. The elderly clients Michael serviced weren't just being overcharged. Their policies were being used to launder money for criminals. My hands shook as I quickly photographed the message before it could be deleted. This wasn't simple insurance fraud. This was organized crime, and my husband was at the center of it. Over the next week, I began paying attention to details I'd previously ignored. Strange late-night phone calls where Michael spoke in coded language about processing and cleaning. Cash payments from clients who always paid in exact amounts ending in 0. Business meetings at odd locations with men who looked nothing like typical insurance customers. I started documenting everything while maintaining the facade of the obedient, beaten wife who'd learned to stay invisible and silent. The breaking point came during Hannah's sweet 16 party planning. I'd spent 3 months and $8,000 of my personal savings to create the perfect celebration, only to receive Michael's text 3 days before the event. "Michael, 2:47 p.m., change of plans. Mom wants Amy to handle the party from here. You can help with setup, but she'll take over the important stuff. Don't make this complicated." I called him immediately, hoping for some explanation. "This isn't personal, Catherine," he said, his tone carrying the threat I'd learned to recognize. "Amy has better connections, and Mom thinks she has better judgment about what makes elegant celebrations. You've done the groundwork. That's valuable too. Michael, I've planned every detail for months. I've paid deposits, coordinated schedules, designed everything according to Hannah's requests. How is giving my work to Amy better connections?" "Look, you're getting emotional again. We've discussed how your emotions cause problems for this family." The casual dismissal carried an undertone of menace I'd learned to fear. Getting emotional had led to kitchen counter bruises. Questioning his decisions had resulted in twisted arms and file cabinet injuries. "I understand," I said quietly, my ribs still aching from last week's discussion about household management. 2 days before Hannah's party, while photographing more of Michael's suspicious text messages, I discovered something that made my blood freeze. Bank records showing massive cash deposits from sources labeled as policy settlements that corresponded exactly with the dates of Tony's wash complete messages. Michael wasn't just emotionally and physically abusive. He was running a money laundering operation through our family insurance business, using elderly clients as unwitting cover for criminal financial transactions. The night before Hannah's party, I made a decision that would save my life and destroy his. I called the FBI Financial Crimes Hotline and requested an emergency meeting. But first, I had to survive one final family humiliation that would give me the courage to burn down everything Michael had built on violence and crime. Hannah's Sweet 16 party was perfect, exactly as I'd planned it to be, despite the fresh bruises hidden under my long-sleeve dress. The backyard looked magical with the twinkling lights I'd strung through every tree branch. The pink and gold color scheme I'd chosen created an elegant atmosphere that made Hannah glow with happiness. My carefully designed flower arrangements filled every corner with beauty. 75 guests enjoyed the catering menu I'd selected based on months of planning. The photographer I'd hired captured perfect moments of Hannah laughing with friends. Every detail reflected the love I'd poured into creating something beautiful for my daughter. Everyone believed Amy had created it all. Michael's mother held court on the patio, describing Amy's incredible artistic vision and natural event planning abilities. Amy moved through the crowd, graciously accepting compliments about her beautiful work, explaining her creative process to admiring neighbors. Amy outdid herself this time. I heard Mrs. Wilson tell another parent. The coordination, the aesthetics, she has such a gift for entertaining. I stood near the refreshment table I'd arranged, wearing concealer over fingerprint bruises on my upper arms, listening to guest after guest praise Amy for my 3 months of work. When Hannah's best friend's mother approached me, I thought someone might finally acknowledge reality. "Catherine, you must be so grateful Amy stepped in to handle all this planning," she said warmly. "I know how overwhelming these big celebrations can be when you're working full-time. It's wonderful when family helps carry the load." The moment crystallized with brutal clarity. I wasn't just being erased. I was being positioned as the grateful beneficiary of Amy's charity. In their narrative, I was too incompetent to handle my own daughter's party, and Amy had graciously saved the day. The final devastation came during Michael's toast. He tapped his champagne flute, drawing everyone's attention, then raised it toward Hannah. "I want to thank everyone for celebrating our beautiful daughter tonight," he began, his voice carrying across the perfectly decorated space I'd designed. "But most especially, I want to thank my sister Amy for creating this magical evening. Amy, your planning, your vision, your incredible attention to detail. This party is a masterpiece." The crowd applauded enthusiastically. Amy beamed, raising her glass in acknowledgement. Hannah hugged her aunt gratefully, thanking her for making her birthday absolutely perfect. I stood 10 feet away, invisible in my own creation, my ribs still tender from Tuesday night's conversation about supporting the family properly, watching strangers celebrate someone else's credit for my love made manifest. Michael caught my eye across the crowd and smiled. Not with warmth, but with the satisfied expression he wore after asserting dominance. This public humiliation wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. He was reminding me, in front of our entire community, exactly where I ranked in his hierarchy. In that moment, looking around the party I'd created while listening to applause for Amy's supposed brilliance, I felt something fundamental die inside my chest. Not heartbreak, something much more dangerous. Fear was being replaced by rage. 24 years of invisibility, casual cruelty, and escalating physical abuse crystallized into perfect clarity. Michael had shown me exactly who he was, and I finally believed him. I made eye contact with him across the crowd, smiled calmly, and walked toward the house, toward the FBI contact card hidden in my jewelry box, toward justice. I walked through my house, the home where I'd been systematically erased for 24 years, and headed straight to my bedroom. From my jewelry box, I removed the FBI agent Sandra Clark's business card I'd hidden after our preliminary phone conversation. Beneath it lay my wedding ring and the Thompson family heirloom necklace that had become a symbol of my captivity rather than belonging. I placed both pieces of jewelry on Michael's nightstand with a simple note. Thank you for showing me exactly what I'm worth to this family. I'm worth more. Moving to my closet, I packed a single suitcase with essentials, including the manila folder I'd been secretly filling for 2 weeks. Photographs of Michael's suspicious text messages, bank deposit records showing money laundering patterns, and documented evidence of his criminal connections. Downstairs, I could hear the party continuing exactly as I'd orchestrated it. Hannah's laughter mixed with guest conversations. The playlist I'd curated played perfectly through speakers I'd positioned for optimal sound distribution. Amy was probably still accepting congratulations for her incredible work. I wrote 2 letters. For Hannah and Tyler, I left a note on the kitchen counter. I love you both more than words can express. I will always be your mother, and you will always be welcome in my new life. But I cannot continue to be invisible and abused in my own family. When you're ready to understand why I had to choose safety over silence, call me. For Michael, I left something much simpler on his desk where he'd see it immediately. The game has changed. Your move. I walked back outside, deliberately moving through the crowd of guests who were enjoying my creation while crediting Amy's supposed talents. Several people smiled and nodded. The helpful wife, the supportive mother, the woman who'd been relegated to set up assistants for her own daughter's birthday. Amy was near the patio, glowing under praise for her incredible event planning skills. She noticed me approaching and smiled brightly. Catherine, isn't this absolutely magical? I'm so pleased with how everything turned out. Hannah looks radiant. It is magical, Amy. Exactly as I designed it to be. For just a moment, confusion flickered across her expression. I hope you enjoyed taking credit for my work, I continued calmly, because this is the last time you'll ever have the opportunity. Before she could respond, I continued walking toward my car. Michael intercepted me near the driveway, his expression shifting from social host to the controlling husband I'd learned to fear. Where are you going? The party's not over yet. The party is perfect, Michael. Amy should be very proud of all her hard work. His eyes narrowed, a warning sign I'd learned to recognize as dangerous. Catherine, if you're upset about the planning situation, we'll discuss it later. Don't create drama at Hannah's celebration. I'm not creating drama, Michael. I'm simply leaving a party where I'm not wanted. After all, Amy handled all the important stuff, right? I got into my car and drove away from the house where I'd been systematically abused and erased, leaving behind the sound of my daughter's joy and the sight of guests admiring my work while crediting someone else's talent. At the first red light, I pulled out Agent Clark's card and dialed her number. Agent Clark, this is Catherine Thompson. I'm ready to provide evidence about the money laundering operation, and I need witness protection immediately. The FBI safe house was austere, impersonal, and exactly what I needed. A secure space where I could strip away 24 years of conditioning and rebuild myself as someone who prioritized justice over survival. Agent Sandra Clark sat across from me at the kitchen table, reviewing the evidence I'd gathered while living with an increasingly violent criminal. Mrs. Thompson, what you've documented here is extraordinary. Text messages showing money laundering coordination, bank records proving financial crimes, photographs of cash transactions. This is enough evidence to bring down a significant criminal network. How significant? Your husband isn't just running insurance fraud, Catherine. He's serving as a financial facilitator for drug trafficking, illegal gambling, and tax evasion operations across 3 states. The collector Tony in his messages is Anthony Marcello, a known associate of the Chicago organized crime family. I felt simultaneously vindicated and terrified. Michael's violence hadn't just been personal. It had been the behavior of someone protecting criminal enterprises worth millions of dollars. There's something else, I said, pulling out additional photographs I'd been too scared to mention initially. Michael has been physically abusive for months. The violence escalated as I started asking questions about his business practices. Agent Clark's expression hardened. Catherine, domestic violence combined with organized crime involvement puts you in extreme danger. Criminals don't typically allow witnesses to leave quietly. That's why I need protection. And that's why I want to ensure Michael and everyone who enabled him face complete consequences. She nodded approvingly. With your evidence and testimony, we can pursue racketeering charges under RICO statutes. Michael could face life imprisonment, and we can seize all assets purchased with criminal proceeds. But the money laundering was just one weapon in my arsenal. Asset number 2. My position as head librarian had taught me research skills that most people underestimated. I knew how to trace property ownership, investigate business partnerships, and uncover public records that revealed hidden connections. Michael's criminal network extended into legitimate businesses that could be exposed and destroyed. Asset number 3 was the most powerful. Dr. Eleanor Chambers, the psychiatrist I'd been seeing secretly for my trauma, whose husband, Judge Harrison Chambers, presided over the federal court where Michael's case would be tried. During our sessions, Eleanor had documented Michael's escalating abuse and my fear for my safety, evidence that would ensure maximum sentencing. The plan crystallized with mathematical precision. Phase 1 would expose Michael's money laundering operation to federal authorities, resulting in immediate arrest and asset seizure. Phase 2 would reveal his domestic abuse to the community, destroying his reputation as a family man, while generating sympathy for my position. Phase 3 would systematically destroy his family's social standing by exposing their complicity in enabling both his criminal behavior and his abuse of me. Each strike would build on the previous one, creating cascading consequences that would strip away every layer of respect, security, and power the Thompson family had built on violence and crime. I opened my secure laptop and began typing my formal witness statement for the FBI task force investigating organized crime financial operations. Michael had spent months teaching me to be invisible and silent through intimidation and violence. He was about to learn that invisible people see everything, and silent people remember every detail. I picked up the secure phone Agent Clark had provided and dialed the number for the U.S. Attorney's Office. "This is Catherine Thompson. I'm ready to testify against my husband's criminal organization. When can we begin?" Agent Clark arranged a meeting with the federal task force within 24 hours of my initial contact. The FBI field office conference room filled with agents, prosecutors, and financial crime specialists who'd been investigating organized money laundering for months without a breakthrough. "Mrs. Thompson, your evidence provides the missing connection we've needed," U.S. Attorney Rebecca Martinez explained, spreading my photographs across the conference table. "These text messages link legitimate businesses to criminal enterprises we've been trying to penetrate for years. What do you need from me?" "Everything you know about your husband's business operations, his criminal contacts, and most importantly, your willingness to testify in federal court." I handed them a second folder I'd prepared. Bank records showing exactly how much money was laundered through elderly client policies. Photographs of cash transactions. Audio recordings of suspicious phone calls. Names and contact information for every person I've seen conducting business with Michael. Agent Clark whistled softly. "Catherine, how did you obtain audio recordings without your husband knowing?" "Michael installed a home security system with audio monitoring in every room 2 months ago. He wanted to track my movements and conversations while he was traveling on business. I learned how to access the recordings remotely. He was surveilling you in your own home. He was monitoring my activities to ensure I remained compliant and silent about whatever I might observe. Instead, I used his surveillance system to document his criminal activities. The irony was perfect. Michael's controlling abuse had provided the evidence that would destroy him." Martinez leaned forward. "Mrs. Thompson, with this level of evidence, we can offer you complete witness protection and guaranteed maximum prosecution for everyone involved in this criminal enterprise. But I wanted more than protection. I wanted systematic destruction. I need to understand exactly how extensive this network is," I said. "Who else is involved? Which legitimate businesses are compromised? How many people will face charges?" Agent Jennifer Walsh, the financial crime specialist, consulted her case files. "Based on your evidence, we're looking at racketeering charges against at least 15 individuals, asset forfeiture affecting 12 businesses, and criminal charges that could result in combined sentences totaling over 200 years. What about Michael specifically? Money laundering, racketeering, domestic violence, tax evasion, and conspiracy charges. He's looking at life imprisonment without parole. And his family? Anyone who knowingly benefited from criminal proceeds could face asset forfeiture and potential criminal charges if they were aware of illegal activities." I pulled out my final folder, detailed documentation of every gift, vacation, and financial benefit the Thompson family had received from Michael's successful business over the past decade. Michael's parents' house renovation was paid for with laundered money. Amy's real estate office down payment came from criminal proceeds. Brian's restaurant expansion was funded through Michael's illegal operations. Every family member has been living on stolen money. The room fell silent as the scope of financial destruction became clear. Martinez smiled grimly. Mrs. Thompson, you haven't just provided evidence for a criminal case. You've documented the complete dismantling of a criminal organization and everyone who benefited from it. That's exactly what I intended. When can you begin formal testimony? Immediately. I've been preparing for this moment for months. The federal task force would execute coordinated arrests within 48 hours. Michael's world would end while he still thought I was too terrified to fight back. I was no longer the invisible, beaten wife. I was the architect of his destruction. Monday morning arrived with deceptive calm while I watched the news from my secure location, waiting for Michael's world to implode. At exactly 8:30 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Hannah. Mom, Dad is acting really strange this morning. He keeps checking his phone and making angry calls about some business problem. Where are you? Are you coming home today? I responded carefully. I'm safe, sweetheart. Taking some time away to think. I love you. 20 minutes later, federal agents executed search warrants simultaneously at Thompson Insurance, Michael's home office, and the 3 legitimate businesses serving as money laundering fronts. I knew this because Agent Clark called with updates. Catherine, we found exactly what you documented. Cash counting machines, multiple sets of financial records, and communications with known criminal associates. Michael is in complete panic. At 10:15 a.m., Michael called me. I answered, curious to hear his reaction to losing control. Catherine, where the hell are you? The FBI just raided my office. They're seizing computers, files, everything. They said they have evidence of money laundering, and they mentioned domestic violence charges. Do you know anything about this? His voice carried genuine terror mixed with rage. The first time I'd heard him sound powerless. That sounds serious, Michael. Money laundering is a federal crime. This is about you, isn't it? You talked to someone. You gave them information about my business. Why would you think that? Because you disappeared right before this happened. Because you left that cryptic message about the game changing. Catherine, what did you tell them? I told them the truth, Michael. The silence stretched for 30 seconds. What truth? That you've been running a money laundering operation through insurance policies while systematically abusing me to keep me silent about your criminal activities. You went to the FBI? Catherine, do you have any idea what you've done? I've ensured that a violent criminal faces appropriate consequences for his choices. I never seriously hurt you. Those were just arguments that got a little physical. Michael, you twisted my arm behind my back and slammed my face against a file cabinet because I moved some papers. You cornered me against kitchen counters until I had bruises across my back. You gripped my arms hard enough to leave fingerprint marks because I wore a dress you didn't approve of. That's not. Those were isolated incidents where things got heated. Those were systematic domestic violence designed to control my behavior through fear and pain. Catherine, listen to me carefully. If you testify against me, you're not just destroying my life. You're destroying our children's future, their college funds, their financial security. Actually, Michael, I've protected Hannah and Tyler's future by opening separate accounts with money I saved from my library salary. They'll be fine. You, however, will spend the rest of your life in federal prison. You can't do this to your own family. You're not my family anymore, Michael. Family members don't launder money for criminals while beating their wives into silence. I hung up and turned off my phone. The warning shot was complete. Michael's criminal empire was under federal investigation. His freedom was ending. And he finally understood that his invisible, beaten wife had become his most dangerous enemy. Tomorrow would bring his arrest. Tuesday morning brought Michael's arrest, executed with precision at 6:47 a.m. while he was still in his pajamas. Agent Clark called me with the details. Catherine, he's in federal custody. No bail due to flight risk and the severity of charges. The money laundering evidence you provided was overwhelming. We arrested 6 associates simultaneously. How did he react? Complete shock. He kept asking how we'd obtained such detailed documentation of his criminal activities. When we mentioned domestic violence charges, he became desperate, asking if his wife was making up stories to get revenge. What did you tell him? That his wife was a credible witness whose evidence had been thoroughly verified by multiple federal agencies. By noon, local news stations were running the story. local insurance agent arrested in federal money laundering investigation. The reports included Michael's mugshot, details about his criminal charges, and mentions of domestic violence allegations that added another layer of community outrage. Michael's parents called me at 2 p.m., having somehow obtained my temporary phone number. "Catherine, what have you done?" his mother Amy demanded. "Our son is in federal prison. The news is calling him a money launderer and a wife-beater. You've destroyed our family's reputation. I've exposed what your family's reputation was actually built on. Michael never laundered money. He's an insurance agent. Michael has been washing criminal proceeds through elderly client policies while physically abusing me to maintain my silence about his illegal activities. That's impossible. Michael would never hurt you." Michael twisted my arm behind my back, slammed my face against file cabinets, and left bruises on my body for months to control my behavior through fear. The silence was deafening. "Catherine," his father George said carefully, "even if Michael made some business mistakes, destroying him publicly doesn't solve anything." "Business mistakes? George, your son was facilitating drug trafficking and illegal gambling operations while beating his wife. These aren't accounting errors. These are federal crimes." "But what about Hannah and Tyler? What about their college funds?" "Hannah and Tyler's education is secure through accounts I established independently. But Michael's criminal assets have been seized by federal authorities to compensate his victims." His victims? The elderly clients whose policies were used to launder criminal money, and the wife he systematically abused to maintain his criminal enterprise. Amy started crying. "Catherine, you have to fix this. Call the prosecutors. Tell them you misunderstood what you saw. Convince them to drop the charges." "I understood exactly what I saw, Amy. And I spent months documenting it carefully before reporting it to appropriate authorities." "Why? Why would you destroy your own husband?" "Because my husband was a violent criminal who was escalating his abuse while running illegal operations. Staying silent would have made me complicit in future crimes." "What about family loyalty?" "Family loyalty doesn't extend to protecting violent criminals, Amy. Your son chose to be a wife-beating money launderer. I chose to seek justice." "Catherine, please." I hung up and blocked their number. The debt collector had arrived in the form of federal law enforcement, and the Thompson family was finally learning that enabling criminal abuse carries consequences. Michael's arrest was just the beginning of their systematic destruction. Wednesday brought social media warfare that exposed the Thompson family's true character to their entire community. I'd spent Tuesday evening creating carefully documented posts on my personal Facebook page, using my real name and professional librarian credentials to establish credibility. At 11 a.m., I published my first post. "After 24 years of marriage, I want our community to know that I have testified to federal authorities about my husband Michael Thompson's money laundering operation and systematic domestic violence. The bruises on my arms are healing, but the financial crimes he committed using elderly client policies require justice. I'm proud to stand with the FBI in protecting vulnerable community members from criminal exploitation." I included photographs of my documented injuries, bank records showing suspicious transactions, and screenshots of Michael's criminal communications. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within 2 hours, the post had been shared 127 times with comments from community members expressing shock, support, and their own suspicions about Michael's business practices. Mrs. Dorothy Wilson commented, "Catherine, I always wondered why my premiums were so much higher than my friends. Thank you for your courage in exposing this." The Methodist Church's pastor wrote, "Catherine, our congregation supports you completely. Domestic violence is never acceptable, and we applaud your bravery in seeking justice." But the most devastating comment came from Dr. Eleanor Chambers. "As Catherine's therapist, I can confirm that she has been documenting systematic domestic abuse for months while courageously gathering evidence of criminal activity. Her strength in choosing justice over silence deserves our admiration." Michael's professional image crumbled entirely when I posted the second update at 3 p.m. For those asking about my safety, I am in witness protection because criminals don't typically allow their abuse victims to testify freely. Michael's violence escalated as I discovered his illegal activities. The FBI has confirmed that exposing money laundering operations often results in retaliation against whistleblowers. This post generated even more support, with dozens of community members sharing their own experiences with domestic violence and praising my courage in seeking help. The Thompson family's social standing disintegrated completely when Amy posted a desperate response on her own Facebook page. Catherine Thompson is spreading lies about our family to get revenge for personal grievances. Michael is innocent of these charges, and we will fight to clear his name. The community's reaction was swift and brutal. Amy's post received over 200 comments, mostly expressing disgust at her defense of domestic violence and criminal behavior. Amy Thompson, your sister-in-law showed photos of her injuries, one neighbor wrote. Are you really defending the man who caused those bruises? Supporting an abuser makes you complicit in abuse, another commented. Catherine Thompson showed incredible courage while your brother was beating her. By evening, the Thompson family had been completely ostracized. Michael's parents were receiving angry calls from church members. Amy's real estate business was losing clients who refused to work with someone who defended domestic violence. Brian's restaurant faced boycotts from community members who associated the Thompson name with criminal abuse. Hannah called me that evening crying. Mom, everyone at school is talking about Dad's arrest. People are showing me your Facebook posts about him hitting you. Is it all true? Yes, sweetheart. Your father has been physically hurting me while running illegal businesses. I had to choose between staying silent or seeking justice. Why didn't you tell us what was happening? Because I was scared, and because I wanted to protect you from seeing your father as a violent criminal until it was absolutely necessary. Social destruction was complete. The Thompson family's reputation was obliterated. Tomorrow would bring financial ruin. Thursday morning brought asset seizure orders that completed Michael's financial annihilation, while I watched from witness protection with deep satisfaction. Agent Clark called with updates at 8:30 a.m. Catherine, federal marshals executed asset forfeiture warrants this morning. The house, the cars, the business accounts, everything purchased with criminal proceeds is being seized, including his family's properties, his parents' house renovation, Amy's real estate office, Brian's restaurant expansion, all funded with laundered money according to your documentation. They're losing everything. I felt no sympathy. 24 years of systematic abuse and erasure had earned them exactly this level of devastation. Hannah called at 9:15 a.m., sobbing. Mom, federal agents came to the house this morning with papers saying everything has to be given to the government. They're taking our home, Dad's cars, even my photography equipment. They said it was all bought with criminal proceeds. Where are we supposed to live? You and Tyler can stay with me once the witness protection requirements are lifted. I've prepared for this situation. But Mom, we're losing everything because you reported Dad. You're losing things that were purchased with stolen money while your father was beating me to keep me silent about his crimes, Hannah. Those possessions were never legitimately yours. This is destroying our entire family. Your father destroyed this family when he chose to be a violent criminal. I'm simply ensuring he faces appropriate consequences. The financial destruction extended beyond immediate family when Michael's criminal associates began turning on each other. Tony Marcello, facing his own money laundering charges, provided additional evidence against Michael to reduce his sentence. Thompson was the central hub for our financial operations, Marcello told federal prosecutors, according to Agent Clark. He processed over $3 million in criminal proceeds through his insurance business while bragging about keeping his wife too scared to ask questions. Michael's business partnerships collapsed when legitimate companies discovered their association with criminal enterprises. 3 major insurance carriers terminated their agreements with Thompson Insurance, demanding immediate return of all policy materials and client lists. But the most satisfying destruction came at 2 p.m. when Michael called me from federal detention, his voice broken with desperation. Catherine, they're taking everything. The house, the business, even my parents' home. Amy's lost her real estate office. Brian's restaurant is being shut down. You've destroyed 3 generations of our family's work. I've exposed 3 generations of your family's criminal enterprises and abuse enablement. My parents never knew about the money laundering. Amy and Brian never participated in illegal activities. Your parents knew you were abusing me and chose to ignore it. Amy and Brian benefited financially from your criminal operations while treating me like hired help. They all enabled your behavior because it profited them. Catherine, please. I'll plead guilty to everything. I'll accept maximum sentences. Just ask the prosecutors to spare my family's assets. No. Catherine, these are innocent people who never committed crimes. These are people who watched you abuse me for months while enjoying the benefits of your criminal success. They chose to prioritize their comfort over my safety. You're going to let my parents become homeless over money laundering they didn't know about? I'm going to let your parents experience the natural consequences of enabling domestic violence while living on criminal proceeds. I hung up and immediately called Agent Clark. I want to provide additional testimony about the family's knowledge of Michael's abuse. They all witnessed it and chose to remain silent. Phase 1 of professional sabotage was complete. Friday brought the avalanche that buried the Thompson family's reputation permanently, while I watched their systematic destruction with growing satisfaction. The local newspaper published a comprehensive investigative report titled The Thompson Family Criminal Enterprise: Money Laundering, Domestic Violence, and Community Betrayal. The article included my formal FBI testimony, photographs of my documented injuries, and financial records showing how the entire family had benefited from criminal proceeds. Michael's parents held a disastrous press conference at 10 a.m., attempting to salvage their reputation by denying knowledge of criminal activities. Instead, they destroyed themselves completely. Our son Michael made some business mistakes, George Thompson told reporters, but calling him a money launderer is unfair. And Catherine's accusations of domestic violence are clearly exaggerated for legal advantage. The community's reaction was immediate and devastating. Mrs. Dorothy Wilson, whose money had been laundered through fraudulent policies, stood up during the press conference and shouted, "Your son stole my life savings while beating his wife to keep her quiet. How is that exaggerated?" Video of the confrontation went viral on social media within hours, showing Michael's parents defending domestic violence while dismissing financial crimes against elderly community members. Amy attempted damage control by posting on Facebook, "Our family is being scapegoated by someone seeking revenge for personal grievances." Michael's alleged business problems are being exaggerated to justify abandoning family loyalty. The post backfired spectacularly when Dr. Eleanor Chambers responded publicly. "Amy Thompson, I have professionally documented months of systematic domestic violence against your sister-in-law. Your defense of abuse, while minimizing criminal activity, is morally reprehensible." Over 400 community members shared Drive Chambers' response, making it clear that supporting the Thompson family meant endorsing domestic violence and financial crimes. Brian's restaurant faced immediate boycotts when customers learned his expansion had been funded with laundered money. By noon, protesters were outside Brian's bistro carrying signs reading "No Service for Criminal Enablers" and "Thompson Family, Wife Beaters and Money Launderers." The most devastating blow came when Channel 7 News interviewed me at 6 p.m., broadcasting my testimony to the entire metropolitan area. For 24 years, I was systematically erased, emotionally abused, and ultimately physically beaten to maintain my silence about criminal activities, I said calmly, displaying photographs of my injuries. The Thompson family enabled this abuse because they benefited financially from illegal operations. What do you want viewers to understand about domestic violence in seemingly successful families? That violence often escalates to protect criminal activities, and that families who enable abuse while enjoying criminal profits are complicit in both crimes. The interview generated overwhelming community support for my position, while completely destroying any remaining sympathy for the Thompson family. Michael called me that evening, his voice completely broken. "Catherine, you've destroyed everyone. My parents are facing bankruptcy and social humiliation. Amy's lost her business and her reputation. Brian's restaurant is finished. Even our children are being harassed at school. Your criminal activities and systematic abuse created these consequences, Michael. I simply documented them accurately. How can you feel no guilt about destroying innocent people? Because there are no innocent people in your family, Michael. You were all complicit in criminal abuse while living on stolen money." Phase 2 of professional sabotage was complete. The Thompson family's social and financial destruction was irreversible. Tomorrow would bring their complete legal annihilation. Saturday brought financial investigations that revealed the stunning scope of criminal proceeds flowing through the Thompson family's entire lifestyle for over a decade. Federal forensic accountants completed their analysis of seized financial records, and Agent Clark delivered the devastating summary during our morning briefing. "Catherine, we've traced $4.2 million in criminal proceeds through various Thompson family accounts over the past 10 years. Every major family purchase, investment, and improvement was funded through money laundering operations. What does that mean for asset recovery? Complete forfeiture of all family wealth. Houses, cars, business investments, even retirement accounts. Everything gets liquidated to compensate victims of the criminal enterprise. The documentation was overwhelming. Michael's parents' house renovation, $180,000 in criminal proceeds. Amy's real estate office down payment, $95,000 in laundered money. Brian's restaurant expansion, $220,000 in illegal funds. Hannah's photography equipment, $15,000 in criminal assets. Tyler's private baseball coaching, $12,000 in stolen money. Every comfort the Thompson family had enjoyed for. The forensic accounting revealed a decade-long pattern of criminal wealth distribution that shocked even experienced federal investigators. Hannah's college fund contained $85,000 in deposits traced directly to drug money processed through fraudulent insurance claims. Tyler's summer baseball camps, private tutoring, and equipment purchases totaled $47,000 in proceeds from illegal gambling operations Michael had facilitated. Even seemingly innocent family traditions were tainted. Annual Christmas gifts averaging $25,000 per year, vacation rentals in Aspen and Martha's Vineyard worth $180,000 total, and jewelry purchases for birthdays and anniversaries adding up to $67,000, all funded through systematic criminal activity. The most damning discovery involved charitable donations the Thompson family had made to build their community reputation. Michael's $50,000 contribution to the Children's Hospital, his parents' $30,000 donation to the Methodist Church Building Fund, and Amy's $15,000 sponsorship of the annual charity auction. Every act of supposed generosity had been purchased with money stolen from vulnerable populations. Federal prosecutors would now seek restitution from everyone who had benefited from criminal proceeds, regardless of their awareness of the source. Amy received official notification at 3 p.m. that her real estate license was under review by the state regulatory board. Banking records showed her business expansion had been funded entirely through Michael's illegal operations, making her professional credentials subject to immediate suspension. Brian faced health department inspections at his restaurant after investigators revealed his kitchen renovations had been completed using criminal proceeds. City permits were being reviewed, liquor licenses questioned, and food service authorizations suspended pending criminal enterprise investigations. The Thompson parents discovered their retirement accounts were frozen while federal auditors determined which portions represented legitimate savings versus criminal proceeds. Their Social Security benefits remained intact, but decades of supplemental income from Michael's success was being reclaimed by victims' compensation funds. Hannah called me Saturday evening, her voice hollow with shock rather than anger. "Mom," the FBI agent explained how much criminal money paid for my photography classes, my equipment, even my car insurance. "I feel sick knowing that my education was funded by Dad hurting people and beating you. Hannah, you were a child who had no knowledge of criminal activity. You bear no responsibility for your father's choices. But I benefited from it while you were suffering in silence to protect us. You benefited because I chose to document criminal activity rather than remain complicit. That was my decision, not your burden. The agent said our house will be sold and the money given to Dad's victims. Where will Tyler and I live during senior year? With me, in a rental apartment I've secured using my legitimate library salary. It won't be luxurious, but it will be honest. I'm scared about what people will think of us. People who matter will understand that you were innocent children whose father was a criminal. People who don't understand that aren't worth your concern. Mom, I'm proud of you for stopping Dad, even though it's destroying everything familiar in our lives." Saturday ended with the Thompson family's wealth completely exposed as criminal proceeds, their community standing obliterated, and their futures dependent entirely on earning legitimate income for the first time in over a decade. The source of their comfort had been others' pain, and justice was systematically correcting that imbalance. Sunday morning brought an unexpected alliance that would ensure the Thompson family's complete destruction. Michael's criminal associates decided to save themselves by testifying against the entire family structure. Anthony Marcello, facing his own life sentence for money laundering conspiracy, requested a meeting with federal prosecutors to provide additional evidence about the Thompson family's role in organized crime operations. Agent Clark called me with the breakthrough. "Catherine, Marcelo wants to testify that Michael's entire family knew about the criminal operations. He has recordings of family meetings where they discussed how to spend illegal profits. The whole family was aware. According to Marcelo, Michael's parents hosted quarterly meetings where criminal proceeds were distributed among family members. Amy received regular payments for consulting services that were actually money laundering facilitation. Brian's restaurant served as a cash processing location for criminal organizations. The evidence was devastating. Audio recordings from family dinners where criminal profits were discussed openly, photographs of cash distribution meetings at the Thompson family home, and detailed financial records showing systematic criminal enterprise involvement by every adult family member. Most damaging was a recorded conversation from last Thanksgiving where Michael's father explicitly discussed expanding the money laundering operations. "Michael, your insurance business has been incredibly profitable for our family's security. We need to ensure Catherine remains unaware of our arrangements, because wives can become problematic if they understand too much about family business." The recording continued with Amy's voice. "Catherine is naturally submissive and doesn't ask complicated questions about money. As long as Michael keeps her focused on household management, she won't interfere with our operations." Brian added, "The restaurant provides perfect cash processing opportunities. Criminal clients pay for expensive meals with dirty money, and we issue legitimate receipts for clean funds. Catherine's never shown interest in understanding business operations." Federal prosecutors now had evidence that the entire Thompson family had conspired to keep me ignorant of criminal activities while systematically benefiting from illegal operations and enabling Michael's escalating abuse. The final recording was from Christmas Eve, just weeks before my escape. "Michael's control over Catherine has been essential to our success," his mother stated clearly. "Her library job provides perfect cover for our family's wealth, and her isolated social life ensures she doesn't discuss financial matters with outsiders." When confronted with these recordings, Amy attempted to negotiate her own plea deal by providing additional evidence against other family members. She revealed that Michael's abuse had been deliberately escalated to ensure my silence about suspicious financial patterns I'd begun noticing. Michael started hitting Catherine because she was asking questions about unusual bank deposits, Amy testified to prosecutors. "We encouraged him to maintain control through intimidation because her curiosity threatened our entire operation. The family double-cross was complete. Criminal associates were testifying against the Thompsons to reduce their own sentences, while family members were betraying each other to avoid maximum penalties." Michael learned about his family's betrayal during his Sunday afternoon phone call from detention. "Catherine, they're all testifying against me to save themselves. My own parents, Amy, Brian. Everyone is giving evidence to prosecutors to reduce their charges. Natural consequences of building relationships on criminal foundations, Michael. But they're claiming I forced them to participate in money laundering. They're saying I threatened them. Were they lying?" Silence. "Michael, did you threaten your family members to ensure their participation in criminal activities?" "That's different from threatening them." "No, Michael. It's exactly the same pattern you used with me. Violence and intimidation to maintain criminal operations. The Thompson family had destroyed each other to avoid justice, but justice was finding them anyway. Monday morning, I prepared for the moment that would complete my transformation from invisible abuse victim to federal witness delivering justice with precision and power. U.S. Attorney Martinez scheduled my final testimony for Thursday morning in the federal courthouse where Michael would learn his fate. My evidence would be the foundation for a RICO prosecution that would dismantle the entire Thompson criminal enterprise permanently. "Catherine, your testimony will be the centerpiece of our case," Martinez explained during our preparation meeting. 24 years of marriage gave you unprecedented access to criminal operations that professional investigators never could have obtained. What specific charges will my testimony support? Racketeering, money laundering conspiracy, domestic violence, witness intimidation, and criminal enterprise management. With your evidence, we're seeking life imprisonment without parole for Michael and substantial sentences for all family members. The irony was exquisite. Michael had spent months teaching me to be invisible and silent through systematic abuse, never realizing that invisible people observe everything and silent people remember every detail with devastating accuracy. I'd used his own surveillance system to document criminal activities. I'd employed his dismissive treatment to gather evidence without suspicion. I'd leveraged his assumption of my compliance to build an unshakable federal case. Tuesday brought my final community appearance before the trial. I requested a meeting with the Riverside Community Library Board to explain my situation and transition my responsibilities. Board Chairman Dr. William Chambers welcomed me into the conference room where I'd served professionally for 20 years with impeccable integrity. "Catherine, the entire board supports your courage in exposing criminal activity and domestic violence. How can we assist during this transition period?" "Dr. Chambers, I need the board to understand that my testimony will likely receive significant media attention. My position as head librarian may become controversial if community members feel I should have prioritized family loyalty over justice." Board member Mrs. Rachel Foster spoke immediately. "Catherine, this community respects professional integrity above family politics. Your decision to seek justice for criminal abuse demonstrates exactly the moral character we value in our head librarian. The board unanimously supports your testimony," Dr. Chambers confirmed. "Criminal domestic violence and money laundering are community safety issues that transcend personal relationships." Pastor Williams announced they would liquidate all assets purchased with Thompson family contributions and donate the proceeds to domestic violence shelters. "We failed Catherine Thompson by accepting stolen money while ignoring signs of abuse in our own congregation," he said from the pulpit. "Christian responsibility requires acknowledgement of our complicity and concrete action to support victims." The Chamber of Commerce voted unanimously to revoke all Thompson family memberships and remove their names from every award, plaque, and recognition in their facility. President Janet Morrison issued a public statement. "Business leadership requires ethical integrity. The Thompson family betrayed community trust while building wealth on criminal violence. But the most devastating reckoning came from former friends and neighbors who dismissed signs of abuse while celebrating Michael's apparent success." Dr. James Butler published a letter in the county newspaper that demolished any remaining sympathy for the Thompson family. "I defended Michael Thompson's character while he was systematically beating his wife and laundering money for organized crime. My willingness to overlook concerning behavior because I benefited from his social connections makes me complicit in Catherine's suffering." 3 neighbors who'd witnessed suspicious late-night activities at the Thompson house came forward to admit they'd chosen to ignore obvious criminal behavior rather than risk social awkwardness. "We saw men delivering cash payments at unusual hours," Margaret Foster told local news. "We heard Catherine crying and noticed her injuries, but we convinced ourselves it wasn't our business to interfere in family matters. The community's collective guilt transformed into aggressive support for my position and complete ostracism for anyone associated with the Thompson family." Amy's real estate business collapsed entirely when clients learned she'd participated in criminal enterprises while defending domestic violence. Her professional license was permanently revoked, and her office building was vandalized with messages reading, "Wife beater enabler," and "criminal supporter." Brian's restaurant closure became permanent when health inspectors discovered he'd been processing criminal cash payments through food service transactions. The building was seized by federal authorities as proceeds of criminal activity. Michael's parents faced complete social isolation when their church congregation voted to exclude them from fellowship until they made public apology to domestic violence victims and returned all gifts received from criminal proceeds. The most satisfying destruction came when Hannah and Tyler publicly distanced themselves from the Thompson family name. Hannah published a statement on social media. "I want our community to know that my mother, Catherine Thompson, is a hero who chose justice over family loyalty. My father's criminal violence created these consequences, not my mother's courage in seeking help." Tyler added his support. "My mom protected our community from criminals while protecting us from the truth until it was absolutely necessary. I'm proud to be Catherine Thompson's son, not Michael Thompson's." The public reckoning was complete. Every person who'd enabled criminal abuse faced social consequences, while community support rallied around my decision to choose justice over complicity. Michael's conviction had exposed not just his crimes, but the network of enablers who'd made his criminal enterprise possible through willful ignorance and misplaced loyalty. The Thompson family legacy was permanently destroyed, replaced by community recognition of domestic violence awareness and criminal accountability. The phone call came on a gray Tuesday morning, exactly 1 week before Michael's sentencing hearing. Federal detention facilities allowed one final conversation between us, monitored and recorded for security purposes. Catherine. His voice sounded hollow, aged decades beyond the months since his arrest. I need to tell you something before Thursday. What do you want, Michael? I want to explain why everything happened the way it did, why the business got complicated, why our relationship became difficult, why things escalated the way they did. You want to justify 24 years of systematic abuse and criminal activity. I want you to understand that I never intended for any of this to hurt you the way it did. The business opportunities came gradually, and keeping you separate from complicated financial matters seemed like protection. Protection? Michael, you twisted my arm behind my back and slammed my face against file cabinets to protect me from understanding you were laundering drug money. Catherine, the physical incidents were isolated moments when stress got overwhelming. I was trying to manage criminal organizations who threatened our family if operations were compromised. Even facing life imprisonment, Michael still couldn't acknowledge that systematic domestic violence was a deliberate choice rather than stress management. Michael, you recorded yourself bragging about keeping me ignorant through physical discipline. You told criminal associates that bruises were more effective than explanations for maintaining operational security. Those recordings were taken out of context. The context was you beating your wife to protect criminal profits while your entire family enabled the abuse because they benefited financially from stolen money. Silence stretched across the monitored line for nearly 2 minutes. Catherine, I need you to know that other inmates here understand what I'm facing. They know I'm going away forever for hurting my wife and stealing from old people. Are you expecting sympathy for facing consequences from people who understand that domestic violence and elder abuse are unforgivable? I'm trying to explain that your testimony didn't just end my freedom. It guaranteed I'll face violence from people who hate what I did for however many years I have left. Good. Catherine, you just expressed satisfaction about your children's father being beaten in prison. Michael, I express satisfaction about a violent criminal facing appropriate consequences from people who understand that beating women and stealing from elderly victims represents the worst kind of human behavior. After 24 years of marriage, how can you feel nothing for what happens to me? Because you spent 24 years teaching me that my feelings, my safety, and my dignity mattered less than your criminal profits and need for control. I learned your lesson perfectly. Catherine, I'm begging you to ask the judge for leniency during sentencing. Tell him that you've forgiven me, that our family wants healing rather than maximum punishment. I will never forgive you, Michael. You are a criminal who hurt innocent people for profit while systematically abusing the woman who trusted you with her life. Then I have nothing left to hope for. You have exactly what you earned through your choices. Nothing more, nothing less. I hung up and immediately called Agent Clark to confirm that the recording would be available for sentencing proceedings. The final exchange was over. Michael Thompson had learned that destroyed wives don't provide mercy to the men who destroyed them. Friday morning brought the Thompson family's final, desperate attempt to manipulate me back into the system that had enabled decades of criminal abuse. Michael's parents arrived at the federal building where I was preparing for Thursday's sentencing hearing, having somehow obtained information about my schedule through their own attorney. They appeared aged beyond recognition. George's shoulders stooped with defeat, Amy's eyes red from weeks of crying and social humiliation. Both carried handwritten letters and wore expressions of people who'd exhausted every other option. Catherine, we need 5 minutes to apologize properly, George said, his voice trembling with desperation. We understand now that we failed you terribly, and we want to make things right. I met them in the secure conference room rather than dismissing them entirely. This conversation needed to happen for my own closure, not their redemption. We've spent months thinking about every time we dismissed your contributions or ignored signs that Michael was treating you poorly, Amy began, pulling tissues from her purse. We realize we enabled his behavior by accepting that he made family decisions while you handled domestic responsibilities. Continue. We should have questioned why you always had bruises or seemed nervous around Michael. We should have insisted that he treat you as an equal partner instead of accepting that traditional marriages have different role distributions. George nodded earnestly. We want to rebuild our relationship with you and help our grandchildren understand that family forgiveness is possible even after terrible mistakes. For Hannah and Tyler's sake, Amy added, playing what they believed was their strongest emotional card. They need stability and family unity during this traumatic period. They need their grandmother and grandfather to maintain relationships with their mother. I studied their carefully rehearsed presentation, the strategic tears, the practiced humility, the calculated appeal to children's welfare. Are you finished with your performance? They exchanged confused glances, unprepared for my clinical response. Catherine, we're trying to apologize sincerely and repair our family relationships. We're admitting that we made serious mistakes in how we treated you. You're trying to manage social consequences by repositioning yourselves as people who made mistakes, rather than people who enabled criminal domestic violence for financial benefit. Amy's composure cracked. Catherine, we didn't know about the money laundering operations. Federal recordings prove you hosted quarterly meetings where criminal proceeds were distributed among family members. You discussed keeping me ignorant of family business. You encouraged Michael to maintain control through intimidation. George leaned forward desperately. Those recordings don't show our complete understanding. Those recordings show your complete participation in criminal enterprises and systematic abuse enablement. Your mistakes were actually crimes. Catherine, we're family, Amy said, falling back on the manipulation that had worked for decades. We raised children together, shared holidays, built memories that can't be erased by legal proceedings. We were never family. I was your son's domestic servant who you tolerated because my labor benefited your comfort, while my silence protected your criminal profits. You can't cut us off permanently over business complications. I can and will cut off permanently criminal enablers who spent decades watching their son beat me while enjoying the benefits of money he stole from vulnerable elderly people. I stood and walked toward the door, ending the conversation definitively. Catherine, please. I wish you luck managing the consequences of your choices. Goodbye. The system's last gasp had failed. Their criminal family structure was permanently dismantled, and no amount of manipulation would restore their access to my life or my children's futures. Thursday morning brought Michael's sentencing hearing and my complete liberation from 24 years of systematic abuse and criminal complicity. Judge Harrison Chambers called the federal courtroom to order at 9 a.m. sharp, with Michael standing before the bench in orange detention clothing, flanked by attorneys who'd already informed him that life imprisonment was inevitable. Mr. Thompson, you have been convicted of racketeering, money laundering conspiracy, domestic violence, witness intimidation, and criminal enterprise management. Before I impose sentence, do you wish to make a statement? Michael's voice was barely audible. Your Honor, I take full responsibility for my actions and apologize to my victims, my community, and my family for the pain I've caused. Judge Chambers reviewed the federal sentencing guidelines methodically. Mr. Thompson, your crimes represent a systematic pattern of violence and criminal exploitation spanning over a decade. The evidence shows you escalated domestic abuse specifically to protect illegal operations while building wealth on others' suffering. The court sentences you to life imprisonment without possibility of parole, plus restitution of $4.2 million to be paid from seized criminal assets. I felt no sadness, no regret, no conflicted emotions. Only profound satisfaction that justice had been served completely. After the hearing, I walked out of the federal courthouse into brilliant autumn sunshine, breathing air that no longer carried the weight of secrets, fear, or complicity in criminal abuse. Hannah and Tyler waited outside, having chosen to attend their father's sentencing to support my testimony rather than his defense. Mom, how do you feel now that it's over? Hannah asked. I feel free. For the first time in 24 years, I feel completely free. Do you regret anything about how this happened? I regret waiting so long to document criminal activity and seek help for domestic violence. I regret allowing your father to teach you that abuse was normal family behavior. But I don't regret choosing justice over family loyalty. Tyler hugged me tightly. I'm proud that you chose to protect elderly people and yourself instead of protecting Dad from consequences. 6 months later, I published a memoir titled Invisible No More: How I Brought Down a Criminal Family Enterprise. The book became a bestseller, with proceeds donated to domestic violence shelters and elderly victim advocacy organizations. The Thompson family name was permanently associated with criminal domestic violence throughout our community. Michael's appeals were denied at every level. His criminal associates received substantial sentences. His family members faced ongoing social ostracism and financial ruin. I returned to work at the Riverside Community Library, where community members regularly expressed gratitude for my courage in exposing criminal operations that had threatened vulnerable populations. Hannah and Tyler thrived in our new life, built on honest income and genuine respect rather than criminal profits and systematic abuse. They learned that choosing justice over family loyalty represents strength, not betrayal. I never visited Michael in prison, never accepted his calls, never responded to letters from his family requesting reconciliation or forgiveness. Some people asked if I felt guilty about destroying my children's father and their extended family. The answer was always the same. I chose myself, my safety, and justice for Michael's victims. And I won. I finally chose myself. And I won completely.